Hi, I'm Liz Kosten, and I'm here with Malcolm Johnstone, and we are here to recognize Justin Holland as an influential African-American classical guitarist in the 19th century. And also as an African-American, he was also a leading abolitionist who worked closely with Frederick Douglass. So indeed, historian Paul Hoogeveen wrote Justin Holland's work as a guitarist, composer, and civil rights advocate during and following one of the most turbulent times in U.S. history makes him a unique and invaluable part of our cultural fabric. So how do we best approach such a life story of Justin Holland's?
If we start right at the beginning of his life, we're getting pretty much there. He was 14 years old, having been born into a family of freed slaves, but his mother and father died, basically leaving him as an orphan. And his fear was that he would be kidnapped back into slavery. They lived in Northern Virginia at that time. So he decided that he was going to walk to Boston. He had heard that the folks in the Massachusetts area were very kind to African Americans, and he wanted to give it a try. He makes his way to Boston, and he discovers that he can get work, he can find a place to live, no problem with that. And then he also discovers the guitar. He had heard of a guitarist who was playing at a theater in downtown Boston called the Lion Theater. His name was Mariano Perez. And he went to hear this Senor Perez, was enchanted with the guitar, and immediately said, I'm going to save money to buy a guitar, and I would like to become a student of Senor Perez, which is what he did. Not only did he become a guitar student, but he also became a student of at least two other teachers, where he learned to read and write music, and he also learned to play the flute, and he learned to play piano. So he was a very well-rounded musician. And the music back in those days was not what we hear on guitar these days. The guitar had just become something of an anomaly of what we would see guitars become, in that it had 6 strings, but a lot of music was being published for the 6-string guitar. And one of the tunes that influenced Justin Holland was called Andantino. It was from a guitar method book that was published in 1810 by Ferdinando Carrilli. And this music, we know that he played the music, he was influenced by the music because he wrote about that. And it is among the earliest examples of classical guitar music as we know it today. It sounds like this.
Beautiful. So while Justin Holland was reasonably comfortable in Boston, he longed for a good education and career. In 1840, he discovered that Oberlin College in Ohio was the first American college to accept women and people of color. Holland saved enough money to attend Oberlin, where he greatly expanded his knowledge of music. He soon established himself as a guitar teacher in nearby Cleveland, Ohio. In the 1840s, Holland met with the famous abolitionist Frederick Douglass and soon became involved in the early civil rights movement. He managed a branch of the Underground Railroad and he assisted runaway slaves escaping into Canada. Another notable example was that Justin Holland was an executive board member at the Colored National Convention held at Cleveland in 1848. Among the many actions he took part in was a revolution declaring the equality of sexes, a subject seldom discussed at all-male gatherings. Frederick Douglass, who was in attendance, wanted language that was more clear and powerful. He proposed saying that we fully believe in the equality of sexes and invite females to take part in our deliberations. After much wrangling, the motion passed and the crowd gave 3 cheers for women's rights, according to the official records of the convention. Some historians believe that this was the first proclamation for equal rights of women in America outside of the first Women's Rights Convention at Seneca Falls, New York, which had taken place just 2 months earlier.
Justin Holland was a great abolitionist, fought for civil rights his entire life, but he also had to make a living, and he was making a reasonably good living as a guitar teacher in the Ohio area. But he was pulled away from Cleveland on a regular basis so that he could participate in the various civil rights activities that were going on. And he needed more than simply being a music teacher. And he discovered in 1854 that there just might be a demand for guitar music if he were to arrange guitar tunes, popular tunes for the guitar. And he found himself a publisher, Brainerd and Company, that were out of Louisville, Kentucky. And he published this very first arrangement of a popular waltz at the time. It's not a great arrangement compared to his later ones, but it was a start. And he soon became established as a guitarist that was known in every household that had a guitar in it. And he published some 300 tunes, unfortunately, most of which have been lost. About 2/3 have been lost, but at least 100 have been saved. And we're beginning to see those arrangements come back and classical guitarists playing them. However, of his original tunes, very few have survived. By my count, only one. And that one is the Andantino, which was published towards the end of his life by a fellow named James Trotter, who wrote a book that talked about the several people of color who were influential in the musical world. The book contains 25 or 30 examples of individuals, and Justin Holland ranks very close to the top of that. And at the same time, they published his Andantino, which today, as I mentioned, represents the only original piece. It's very classical in its nature. It's reflective of the classical guitarist Fernando Sor, who never made it to America but was still influential. Justin Holland loved Fernando Sor, called him the greatest guitarist who ever lived. And so it's not surprising that we see that he emulated such music. So I'm going to end our discussion with just a couple of snippets from that particular piece, the Andantino by Justin Holland.